right, so you're struggling to shoot lower scores and you're wondering how we can accomplish that. Well, today we're going to talk about part 2 of how to shoot lower scores. In part 1, we talked about 3 to 6 foot putts, how to dominate those, a couple drills to do in order to dominate that little area 3 to 6 feet around the pin. Now we're going to talk about distance control. The 3 to 6 foot putts frees up a lot of parts of our games, one of it being our iron play. It allows us to attack the pin more because if we miss, we can always chip it close 3 to 6 feet and make the putt. So it frees up our iron game and allows us to get a little more aggressive. So as we get a little more aggressive, what's the main thing that we have to do with our irons? The number one thing with our irons to lower our scores is distance control. Not only distance control, but knowing our distance. Your average amateur thinks they hit the ball way further than what they actually do. If I was to put you on my launch monitor and you tell me what you're gonna carry your pitching wedge, it's gonna be shorter than what it actually is, I guarantee it. A lot of amateurs don't know their actual numbers. So going to the range, picking a target, and really dialing in with like a pitching wedge, 9-iron, or whatever that distance is, and trying to hit it to that distance and figuring out what the distances are with your clubs. I always like to start with a pitching wedge and go from there. So I'll start with the pitching wedge and hit some shots until I'm feeling some really good shots. I'll get my rangefinder out and I'll scope it. That's one way to do it on the range. Another way is to invest some money. You can get a launch monitor or you can get the Arcos sensors that go on the end of your clubs, and you can use those. It connects to your phone through Bluetooth. That's what I used when I was first starting out. This was like 10 years ago though. I'm sure it's a lot better than what it was then, but this helped me really narrow in my distances to be within plus or minus 3 yards of what I was actually thinking. And that's surrounding me around more pins. The main thing that we want to do is we want to realize that our clubs are approximately 4 degrees between each iron. So if you can think of an average distance for your pitching wedge and get an average distance for your pitching wedge, you hit maybe 50 shots, average the distance on a launch monitor, on your Arcos app, or doing a rangefinder, you can figure that your clubs are gonna be approximately 10 to 12 yards of a gap depending on your compression and your smash factor. So for me, it's about 12 yards of a gap in between my clubs. My pitching wedge is 142. My 9-iron is 154. My 8-iron is 167. Or my 7-iron, is 180. So that's a 13-yard gap. My 6-iron is about 192. And then my 5-iron, I'm looking for about 205. So I consistently have right approximately about 10 yards to 12-yard gap in between my clubs. And you can figure that for yourselves as well. Your average amateur, it might be 8 to 10 yards of a gap in between each club, but that's gonna help you narrow in your distances and your gaps in between your clubs and see where you need to fill gaps in your bag as well. So that's another important thing, is making sure you have the proper gappage in your clubs with the loft of each club. That's why you see a lot of pros tinkering with their lies, with their lofts, adjusting a lot of clubs, because they're trying to tinker in those distances because they know that distance control is one of the main things. That's why I put it as part 2 on my list. So really take the time to narrow in on your distances, thinking about each club being an 8 to 10 yard gap, and that's gonna help you get closer to the pins. If you followed for part 1, getting 3 to 6 feet putts down with confidence, the closer that you get to the pin, the more aggressive you can be on your birdie putts and the more putts that are gonna fall, ultimately lowering our score. So follow 4 Fanatics for more tips, and I'll teach you how to get those scores lower.